Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Tourism and Hospitality Service Management, SOTHSM, Bachelor of Arts, Facility and Services Management, BAFSM, Semester I, BFO-003 Basics of Facility Management, Unit-9 Space Management, 9.0 Objectives. After reading this chapter, you will be able to understand the role of space management in hotels, offices and other areas, identify the flexibility in planning and future expansion, calculate the sizes of different areas such as hotels and offices, explain about basic design, standards and cost considerations. 9.1 Introduction. Space management is the management of an organization's physical space inventory. This involves tracking how much space an organization has, managing occupancy, information, and creating spatial plans. Space planning principles make the highest and best use of land and building resources, continually modernize, organize campus space in a way that strengthens a sense of place, centralize spaces, place a priority on students, balance space requirements for social and academic needs. There are three basic elements to space management: speed control, lane positioning, communication. 9.1.1 Space standards. 1.01 Precise space standard may be established by the brief, otherwise the following may, for very preliminary sketches, estimates only. They may well revised during detailed design stages. This is particularly true or the given for cooking, which must be treated with caution. It is made clear in technical study hotels for that old rule, appropriate in view of the revolution in cooking and eating methods and habits. However, architects must sometimes prepare rough design sketches based on incomplete client information, and these figures are included for their benefit. More detailed information on many of these spaces is contained in appropriate sections of the AJ Metric Handbook and other material from the AJ Information Library. 1.02 Food and Beverage Department, Food Service Areas, Dining Rooms, Luxury, 1.7 square meters to 1.9 square meter per seat. Coffee shops and reasonable restaurant standard, 1.3 square meter per seat. Lounge and bar, 1.1 square meter to 1.4 square meter per seat. Banquet, 0.9 square meter to 1.3 square meter per seat. Staff canteens, 0.7 square meter to 0.9 square meter per seat. Service facilities, kitchen for dining and coffee shop, exclusive of stores, 60% of dining room and coffee shop, or 0.9 square meter to 1.0 square meter per seat. Kitchen for coffee shop only, 45% of coffee shop, or 0.6 square meter per seat. Food and liquor and china storage, 50% of kitchen, or 0.5 square meter per seat in dining room and coffee shop, or 0.3 square meter per seat were coffee shop only. Kitchen or pantry to banquet rooms, minus 20% of banquet facility, or 0.24 square meter per seat. Banquet storage, 8% of banquet area, or 0.05 square meter per seat. Rooms and service departments, guests' bedrooms, sizes vary enormously. Double room plus bathroom and lobby could be about 20 square meters to 24 square meters. Minimum standards for bedroom only. British Travel Association Memorandum are single, 5.57 square meters, double, 8.36 square meters, twin-bedded, 10.22 square meters. Bathrooms allow about 3.8 to 4.2 square meters. If calculated separately from bedroom. Offices normally required areas will vary between about 7.5 square meters and 20 square meters or more depending on number of guest bedrooms and other facilities. Exact standards are difficult to define. The areas given below are therefore roughly grouped to give an indication only. Group A 7.5 square meters to 9.5 square meters. Group B 9.5 square meters to 11.5 square meters. Group C 11.5 square meters to 14.0 square meters. Group D 14.0 square meters to 18.5 square meters. Group E 18.5 square meters to 23.0 square meters. Administrative 100 rooms to 50 rooms. Manager, executive assistant or assistant manager, budget and control director or analyst, secretary's offices, possibly 2 each. Sales and catering, purchasing, personnel manager, hiring, room auditing, general office, food and beverage manager, chef, steward. Banquet manager and banquet head, waiter, room service, housekeeper, receiving clerk, timekeeper, engineer, other spaces, cloakrooms, fixed rows of hooks, allow 0.1 square meter per user, includes allowance for staff circulation and for public space around counter, hooks plus seating or lockers, allow 0.2 square meter to 0.3 square meter per user. Public assemblies, conferences, allow 0.5 square meter to 0.6 square meter per person plus allowance for stage, translation booth, etc., or overall average of 0.7 square meter to 0.9 square meter. Dances, allow 0.6 square meter to 0.9 square meter per person exclusive of band space, which may be up to 12 m to for 6-piece band. Swimming pool, internal or external, can be any size or shape. For serious swimming, smallest pool size is 25 meters x 12.5 m, depth 0.9 m to 2 meters, but up to 3 meters or more if for diving. Plus, surround, min 2 meters, changing rooms, sports and recreations, depends on facilities offered. Example, badminton needs space 16.5 mx. 8.5 mx up to 9.15 m high, table tennis 9 meters x 3 meters per table, circulation and reception areas, overall allowance for general circulation areas 2.3 square meters to 2.8 square meters per person, waiting areas per person 0.5 square meter to 1.4 square meter depending on number of seated people and cross flows. The lower figure is for 100% standing with no cross flows. 9.1.2 car parking and access. 2.01 planning requirements vary according to the size and type of hotel and its situation. Required provision must be sought from planning authority. Typical provision is 1 car space for every 2 bedrooms in the residential area, 1 car space for every 10 square meters in the public rooms, or 1 car space for every 10 persons using the public rooms. But apart from any regulations, the hotel itself may determine the number of parking spaces, e.g., a motor hotel on the outskirts of a large town or city may need 1 car space for every bedroom, although some experience suggests that 60% to 65% car spaces per bedroom is adequate. Inside London, fewer car spaces are needed per bedroom, but the requirement for conference parking may be greater. As a rough guide, between 32 and 36 cars can be maneuvered and parked in a space 27.5 m x 30.5 m 2.02, while the car park will almost always be reached through a separate entrance and is often some distance from the reception area. Provision must be made for passengers to alight safely and conveniently at the main hotel entrance, whether from taxi or private car. In the latter case, it should also be made easy for the driver to return from the car park direct to the reception area. 2.03 In an urban area, the need for car parking space may preempt the use of basement or roof area of low-rise buildings and, in turn, the siting of boiler plant and mechanical services tends to be displaced to the subbasement or upper stories of the building axis. 2.04 An important consideration of planning control is the potential risk of traffic congestion and obstruction. Pedestrian and vehicular access to the hotel needs to be determined and agreed at an early stage. Commercially, the position of the hotel entrance is usually a critical feature, which then determines the location of the main frontage. 2.05 Secondary access is required for goods and service vehicles with adequate provision for turning, unloading, and loading. A separate staff entrance is usually provided with direct access to changing and service rooms. 2.06 It is necessary to make separate provision for receiving and handling different types of goods, considering their nature and storage requirements. Main divisions are goods stores, beer, wines, spirits beer cellars, wine and spirit stores, crate, storage, food cold stores, vegetable stores, dry goods stores, laundry and soft furnishings linen stores, general, crockery and cutlery stores, cleaning, equipment stores, storage for maintenance, plant, furniture, and general goods, fuel, oil storage tanks and or solid fuel, enclosures, refuse. 2.07 Provision must be made for refuse storage and collection, including the temporary accumulation of empty containers, which often tends to be underestimated. This is a potential source of nuisance due to decomposing residues of food and rubbish. Rats and flies. Properly covered bins and containers are essential, and these should be sited in an impervious enclosure equipped with means of hosing down and drainage. 9.1.3 Basic layouts. 3.01 Various relationships between the two sorts of accommodation, bedrooms and public areas. 3.02 Choice between a high or low building depends on site value and any limitations imposed on the development. In a rural setting of relatively low land value, planning and construction costs usually favor a low building. There are substantial savings in foundation and structural work. Lifts are not obligatory up to 3 stories, and there may be economies in the use of pumping equipment. Maintenance is usually easier and cheaper, but long corridors with more staircases are needed, and there is an appreciable increase in engineering services costs. Heating, insulation, plumbing and drainage. 3.03 In an urban location, an expensive site may be justified only by a tall building. Generally, a compromise must be reached considering planning limitations on the average numbers of floors which may be constructed over the plot, rights of light and other legal restrictions protecting nearby property. The most common arrangement is a tall bedroom block over a much larger area of low public rooms. 3.04 High costs of site purchase in a city center may be recompensed by letting high-value frontage space at ground floor level and above as shops and other metrical activities unconnected with the hotel. It may be advantageous to provide hotel accommodation above office or shop development on the upper floors of a tall building. In a provincial town having limited demand for hotel accommodation, a combined residential development including self-contained flats might be commercially attractive. General planning considerations. Public rooms. 3.05 These areas should be as free from restriction as possible, and the structural framework is essentially based on large span units. Public rooms generally need to be sited at or near ground level for convenience, although restaurants may also be provided at the top of the building to command a view. Apartments. 3.06 The bedroom areas are formed from relatively small cell-like units divided by separating walls, and interspaced with ducts which convey soil, waste, and other services. 3.07 For economy, the shape of the bedroom block is usually based on two parallel rows of bedrooms, with or without inner bathrooms, served by a central corridor, 5A. If the width of the block is restricted or if it is intended to confine the bedrooms to one frontage to enjoy a view, a single row of bedrooms may be used with a corridor along one side, 5B. An alternative layout to limit the overall width may consist of a central corridor between two rows of bedrooms which are separated by bathrooms. In this case, bathrooms are usually arranged in pairs with one on the outside and the second adjoining the corridor, 5C. It is possible to economize in the ventilation of bathrooms with an outer wall, but there may be little else to be said for this plan. 3.08 On plan, the block forms an elongated rectangle which may have straight or curved walls, be joined at each end to form a rectangle or circle, or be linked at one end to give an L, T or Y shape. 6. 3.09 Initially, the arrangement of the bedroom block will depend on size and shape of site and nature of surroundings, but in preparing subsequent details, structural framework and vertical services, example, soil, waste, mains and lifts, must be related to layout of public areas, underneath which have a quite different structural requirement. The structural module for the bedroom block is determined by sizes of rooms concerned. Similarly, positions of vertical ducts also depend on room sizes and their arrangement. 3.10 The length of each wing of the bedroom block is usually limited by the maximum distance the occupants must travel to reach a staircase in the event of fire, namely 30 meters, incombustible floor. For practical and identification purposes, lifts and staircases are normally placed together. Stairs and landings should be separated from bedroom corridors by self-closing doors to stop smoke. Every part of the building occupied by guests or staff should have two independent escape routes in case of fire. Fire escape routes must also satisfy specific requirements of fire authorities as to 1. Fire-resisting construction, 2. Linings and use of combustible materials, 3. Protection of route and approaches, 4. Exits and safe outlets, 5. Signs and notices. Official guidance on fire in hotels is now drafted. An information sheet will be issued in the Architect's Journal when the official document is published. Orientation. 3.11 Restrictions imposed by site, particularly in a town, may determine the building's orientation regardless of other considerations. Account, however, must be taken of the aspect from various rooms and effects of sunlight. Bedroom blocks with the long axis nearer north-south than east-west will normally be preferable. Kitchens and rooms used for storage of food and wine should, if possible, be sited on the north or northeast side to facilitate temperature control. 9.1.4 Circulation. 4.01 Routes taken by resident guests, non-resident diners, and staff follow distinct patterns, and these establish clear relationships between the hotel's various parts. Layout and planning of the hotel must facilitate movements of people and, as far as possible, provide for the separation of guests, staff, and maintenance personnel. This is important not only to avoid disturbance and annoyance of the guest but also to enable service facilities to be designed for efficient use. 4.02 Secondary circulation is often desirable to separate resident and non-resident guests, c.g., by providing direct access to restaurants and banqueting halls. This has a dual purpose in that residents' needs can be given exclusive attention at the reception area without unnecessary congestion, while people entering and leaving both areas can be better controlled and supervised. BFO-003 having determined the sequence of movement, the relative positions of rooms and their ancillary services can be located. A diagram of the main circulations is given in 7. This is not necessarily a suitable layout for any hotel. It is included merely to give some idea of possible circulation patterns and interrelationships. 9.2 Preliminaries and Design Principles. 9.2.1 Dimensional Coordination. Recommendations for horizontal and vertical control link dimensions for hotels are contained in BS 4330 19682. Recommendations for horizontal controlling dimensions are illustrated in 8 and Table 3, and vertical controlling dimensions in 9. The complete should be consulted. 9.2.2 Type of client. Property developer will usually be developing a site for occupation by or in participation with a hotel operating organization. Architect will prepare feasibility sketches to explore and illustrate site's potential. After agreement on financial principles or terms, project will be developed further, incorporating detailed requirements of hotel operator. Division of financial participation in project should be defined at this stage. Example, development company to provide shell or structure finished to a certain limit, hotel company to finish, off, fit and furnish. Developers and architects' roles and responsibilities must be clearly defined. Hotels are planned to suit specific requirements, and as these vary considerably for different operators, inherent dangers in planning or building hotels speculatively must be recognized. Hotel operating company will commission architect to investigate a site, prepare sketches and pursue project to conclusion. Operators will usually have an accommodation brief prepared within their own organization. This may be supplemented by a manual of standard operating procedures, finishes, space requirements and so on. Scope of architect's responsibility should be defined. Example, does it include layouts for catering equipment, interior design, joint developer hotel company? The many permutations possible within this system make it most essential for architects' role and responsibilities to be firmly established at the earliest stage. 9.2.3 Basic design. Type of hotel: commercial, residential, permanent residence, transit, resort, motor hotel or motel, service rooms or suites, with or without restaurant, combination of above. Feasibility study. Operators' market and financial feasibility studies will answer and amplify many of the design criteria to be established later in the brief. Standards. Standard of luxury and service required will affect space allocations, services provision, costings, and so on. In some countries, hotel ratings and financial grants are determined by statutory regulations defining standards, accommodation and operational requirements. Detailed accommodation schedule with interrelationship of spaces should be obtained from operator. Operator's individual method of operation and management policy has profound effect on planning, cost considerations. Financial feasibility study will have been based on a building cost determined by professional advisors. Alternatively, market and financial studies might limit or expand the finances available for a particular project. Bedroom rates will have been determined for a particular market. This will be reflected in finances available and therefore in standard of comfort. Budget costs should be broken down into construction costs and fittings and furnishings. These must vary in detail for each project and are of particular importance in a landlord-tenant situation. In checking through the brief, individual items should be classified as either construction or fittings, etc. Relationship between capital cost, Maintenance and taxation should be considered. Time program. The following factors must be agreed. Starting date of building works after stabilization of plans with minimum foreseeable alteration of requirements by operator. Actual building period. Integration of decor, fittings and furnishings. Pre-opening training and shakedown period. Seasonal or peak business period to be avoided or sought. Earlier opening date possibly offsetting increased costs for shorter building time. Possible employment of project managers to oversee and integrate the entire project in complicated exercises. This saves a great deal of time. Flexibility in planning and future expansion. Bedroom layouts are normally stable, but changes in policy or management might affect planning of public areas later. Load-bearing walls and hard decor are therefore sometimes a disadvantage. If by design or circumstance expansion is necessary after completion, a built-in expansion factor in services, structure and communication must be considered. Disturbance of guests during building is to be avoided, and for this reason, vertical expansion of bedroom accommodation is least desirable. Specialist advisors, appointed by either architect, developer, or hotel operator, client liaison. The complexity of hotels demand that decisions by client or operator should be clear and speedy. One person should be delegated to make decisions. Baggage handling. Define guest and baggage routes and methods of handling baggage. Special entrance or baggage room. Consider mass arrivals of baggage if hotel accepts tours. Establish degree of mechanization, conveyors, and so on. Reception, number of staff, equipment. Establish exactly how guests will be received and shown to rooms, and how they and their accounts will be handled during a stay. Number of staff required, reception and number of staff, receptionist, cashiers, reservation clerks, may be remote, secretarial and clerical staff, stationery and record store, type of records kept and location of store, offices. Basically, there are 3 departments. There will usually be some overlap. Establish whether access by the public is required to any room. Cashier, reception, reservation, housekeepers department, food and beverage, stewards department, mechanical, accountancy etc. Telephones, type of system, manual, PMBX, or automatic, PAX, type of telephone, whether coin box or separately metered. Cubicles or hoods, house phones connected to hotel switchboard for internal use by guests. Reception lobby, shops, can vary from a full-scale shop to a small kiosk, according to space available and policy at hotel. Usually let as concessions. Detailed briefing may be given by concessionaire, number, type, and position. Example, newspapers and books, boutique, souvenirs, accessories, etc., chemist, florist, chocolate, sweets, pastries, tobacco, fruit. Some of these may be combined. Size, complete built-in shops or freestanding kiosks. Access, entrance from street and foyer, or only from foyer. Display, windows in street as well as in foyer. Display cases without sales facilities. Policy on showing name of concessionaire, times of opening, in relation to after closing display requirements and automatic vending machines, times of opening, in relation to after closing display requirements and automatic vending machines, staff, number in each shop. Self-service, delivery of goods to hotel delivery bay or separately, through foyer, from street, storage, in shop only or bulk storage facilities elsewhere in hotel, travel agents, travel, theatre tickets, car hire. Closer connection with hotel staff than shops. The concessionaire will give detailed briefing. Facilities required for display, hairdressers, consider plumbing, 9.3 bedrooms and service, 9.3.1 bedrooms, the trend is away from large. Individually designed and finished, Apartments towards smaller rooms fitted with standard units of furniture, which allow economies in both capital outlay and space. Standards of design must be high. The reputation of a hotel depends largely on comfort and convenience of bedrooms, bedroom accommodation, singles, doubles, suites, dressing rooms, meeting rooms. Establish details of types and sizes required. Proportion of single to double beds will be decided by feasibility study. In all new hotels, a bathroom and B unit adjoining the bedroom will always be provided. Studio layout. Consider convertible bedrooms used as sitting room or for business meetings during the day. Furniture. Establish policy for built-in and loose furniture. Built-in but not loose furniture is covered by grant in UK. Allow cost of building in and attendance, cupboards. Establish guests' probable length of stay. This may determine sizes of cupboard, control panel, for communications, environmental control and so on. Internal environment. Discuss methods. Entrance door. Establish door number and key suiting policy, locking system, remote, control by guest, and so on. Wall finishes. Discuss maintenance factor with operator. Automatic dispenser. Liquor and refreshment dispenser can be provided in bedrooms. Sales can be centrally recorded. Guest bathrooms in all new hotels. A bathroom and B unit should adjoin each bedroom. Bath. Establish size 6 feet 1800 mm to 1900 mm with shower usually preferred. Shower. Establish whether required drip dry rails or lines. Line can be on spool. Loudspeaker extension. Service rooms. Room service. Check whether there is to be full room service requiring central pantry or partial room service, usually requiring only floor pantries. Establish also whether maids are to have separate service rooms or share, say, one large room per floor. Lift sizes are related to room service. Trolleys. Linen storage. Establish how many days supplies of linen is to be stored, usually 1/2 days supply in each housemaid's cupboard. Linen chutes. Staff lavatories. Maids changing, canteen, separate or shared with other staff. 9.3.2 Public rooms. Lounge. To be revenue earning, the lounge must be part of the bar or cater for special functions, example, entertainment, business conventions. Bar lounge or 9 bar. Establish function of lounge, type and number of seats and tables, motive or name, if any, capacity and function, if catering is subcontracted. Kitchen, changing rooms and so on must be separate from those belonging to hotel. Public service. External access for heavy equipment and exhibition material, example, cars, boats, is very important. Anterooms. Liquor service if required. Dance floor. Removable carpet. Changing rooms for staff. Male and female temporary staff may both serve at one function. Food and liquor service system to main rooms and anterooms. Cine projection may require separate projector room. Theme, motive or names. Public cloakrooms and lavatories. Attendants for men's and women's lavatories and for cloakrooms if separate. Attendants, tours, cloakrooms. Women prefer generally to collect their coats from within a cloakroom lavatory. Men from outside. Powder room for women. Shoe cleaning and toiletries for men. Special accommodation. Chauffeurs or other staff rooms. Day nurseries, especially in resort hotels. Sick bay. House doctor or nurse. Businessmen's secretarial facilities or offices. Gymnasium, Turkish or sauna bath. Cinema, simple meeting rooms. Press, interview and lecture rooms. Casino and card rooms. Changing rooms and cabanas for swimming pools. Night clubs. Kosher kitchens and dining rooms. Manager's flat. Service flats or suites. VIP rooms. Chapels or other religious facilities. Service rooms. Laundry and linen rooms. Linen provision. Is linen to be hired or own linen? If own, is it to be sent to laundry or laundered on premises. Establish how many days supplies of clean linen needs to be stored, usually 3 days. Establish frequency of delivery, control and issue. How is clean linen issued and soiled linen returned? Use of chutes, trolleys, lifts, linen rooms. Establish whether there is to be one on each floor. Valet service, pressing, sponging and dry cleaning. Kitchens, specialist, consult at early stage. Extent of food service, banquets, bedrooms, staff and so on. This will determine type of kitchen, wash-up system. Example, conveyor belt, refuse disposal, cold rooms, structural or package units, chef's office, supervision, power, gas or electricity, staff canteen, food preparation and cooking of main kitchen or separate, method of dispensing, consider vending machines, number of staff, executive dining room, determine whether this is required. Staff lounge, housekeeper, function is to supervise guest bedrooms and bedroom staff. Linen and so on, accommodation, is housekeeper to live in. Will there be any assistance, staff changing, type of staff, kitchen, managerial, secretarial, etc., numbers per shift, size of rooms, lockers, showers, lavatories, etc., engineering staff, number of staff, their functions and requirements, maintenance, consider whether workshop required. Example, separate furniture shop, storage. Generally, get full details of all storage requirements as early as possible and beware of common tendency to underestimate. Supervision, is all storage under supervision of storeman or are there separate stores for liquor, vegetables, dry storage, crockery, meat, fish, dairy produce and so on. System of issue, affects circulation in building. Timekeeper security, discuss supervision, security corridors, room numbering, establish operators system, tie up with telephone system and with lift system, vending machines, ice, mineral waters, cigarettes, service yard loading bay, staff entry, stacking space, for crates, beer bottles and so on if required, parking and other external areas, number of cars to park, covered parking. Lock-up attendant, any charge for public use, flag poles, diplomatic flags, conference flags and so on, signs, illuminated and non-illuminated, swimming pool, consider public changing rooms. 9.3.3 Technical study hotels, hotel catering. Technical and design problems, growth of technology, between the hotel or restaurant operator and the architect is a growing body of technology, scientifically approaching both customer needs and efficient production. In large hotel companies, particularly outside the UK, these technologies are organized within each company under various titles and include marketing, project management, development, work study, layout and planning, and operations analysis. The small company cannot afford such organizations and has to rely on catering consultants, some of whom cover some of these expertise. In the main, catering consultants in the UK have tended to specialize in one or other aspect which may be relevant to a particular caterer's problems but not to an integrated approach to restaurant design. This should start with diagnosing customer needs at conscious and subconscious levels and end with calculating the amount of shelving required in the dry goods store. Technical evolution. Since the war, the revolution, particularly in high street catering, has progressed swiftly, partly through improved methods of food preservation, enabling, for example, vegetables to be available all the year round, or labor to be saved by the use of freeze-dried powdered soup, partly through farm rearing of what was previously wildlife, offering wider choice at lower cost, e.g. scampi and prawns, and now guinea fowl, pheasant, lobster, but mainly through catering establishments now being numerous enough to permit specialization centered round the most popular dishes: steaks, roasts, bacon and eggs, hamburgers, drinks and so on, the caterer's obsession has been to reduce food preparation and storage space and hence increase revenue earning space. He has also been concerned to reduce staff and the level of skill required and to improve cost control of the use of raw materials. These objectives have been achieved by severely limiting the number of cooking processes. Even adding omelettes, for example, to a popular hamburger menu means employing one additional skilled member of staff per shift and allowing space for preparation. Space requirements. Recent legislation requiring greater provision of lavatories, staff changing rooms and so on has increased the pressure to compensate by reducing other non-revenue earning space. This, in turn, is forcing hoteliers to pay more attention to concepts and designs that will reduce labor. Thus, the old formulae relating customer seating areas to kitchen and storage areas are no longer applicable. Space requirements are determined by one type of service and associated methods of preparation, to variety offered on the menu in terms of number of cooking processes involved, 3 volume of custom at different times of day, 4 peak rates of customer throughput. 5 how long the average customer takes over each meal, 6 proportion of different sized groups served daily, 7 elaborateness of service, e.g. cooking at table, use of trolleys or plated service, vegetables already on the dish, affect width of corridors, 8 seating and service plan, 9 shape of space for whole operation. Examples show how variable the space ratios have now become. The ratios are of revenue earning customer space to non-revenue earning space, kitchen, storage, public lavatories, staff lavatories, chef's offices and so on. Thus, functional non-revenue earning space in the first case is 6 times the requirement for similar space with the simpler hamburger operation. In addition, 100 seats could occupy 80% more space in one case than another to allow room for cooking at the table. Importance of atmosphere. The other main revolution has been the recognition by some successful caterers and hoteliers that living atmosphere, of which interior design is the main component, is the most important element in enjoyment of a meal, closely followed by the sensitivity and skill of service. Customer acceptance of standard foods or drinks will vary enormously with variations in these two elements. Also, a choice of atmosphere, menu and service within an establishment generates more custom, centralized production, although central off-site food preparation has now existed for almost half a century. Broadly speaking, the economics of distribution of frozen foods are such that only fairly expensive dishes, involving a high degree of chef's skill, will offset the additional distribution costs. Exceptions may, in time, be proved in abnormal cases, such as school meals. Nevertheless, many caterers, in the absence of a detailed knowledge of all the costs, are pursuing this course of development. In fact, certain types of meat do not stand up well to the processes involved, and at the moment, national food manufacturers are making only 5 or 6 haute cuisine items that are acceptable. These items are essentially wet entries such as sole bonne femme, coq vin and similar dishes, which form only one of the categories of choice of main dish. On a traditional menu, recently there has been a move in hotels and multistrand establishments to centralize certain aspects of the production processes within the building. But care must be taken to choose only those parts of the process which can be amalgamated without destroying the basic motivations of the workers concerned. Many of these developments simply result in poorer communications, lack of motivation, and increased frustration, leading to increased staff turnover and hence to increased costs of recruiting and training new staff. This in turn leads to lower standards of performance. if what is centralized can be seen as a whole business, e.g. central, storage, having an input, process and output that can be accounted for in monetary terms, then there may well be a case for centralization, but not otherwise. Innovations in equipment, apart from labor-saving devices such electric electric mixers, pop-up toasters and so on, the only innovations this century have been refrigerators, dishwashing machinery, microwave and forced air convection ovens and pressure cooking. Infrared radiation has some application in keeping dishes warm and to a lesser extent in reheating frozen foods. Recent developments have been concerned with automatic timing devices, intended further to reduce the skill required. Extensive research, both in this country and the US, shows that microwave ovens, while invaluable for reheating a limited number of items, are strictly limited as to what they can do well, their rate of output, and the very precise state in which raw materials have to be put in the oven if they are all to complete the process at the same temperature. As far as reconstitution of frozen, pre-prepared meals is concerned, it is fairly well established that the high-speed convection oven is perhaps the most revolutionary innovation. It has the same capabilities as a conventional oven but bakes or roasts in 2/3 of the time. Although developed for airlines, it is now produced in various sizes for static units and could spell the death of the conventional oven. Catering cost control, proportioned food, efforts to improve the control of raw material costs have led to the use of proportioned raw materials such as steaks supplied cut to size. Not unnaturally, such developments are resisted in the kitchen. The last bastion of defense is now haute cuisine, but even there, historically the focus of innovation and experiment developments are taking place. The cost of employing a pastry chef to make a few gâteaux is prohibitive, particularly if there is a high-class local baker-confectioner who can employ his staff full-time. The same reasoning applies to butchery because in a large city a hotel can always specify and buy whatever cuts it requires. Obviously, these considerations have a major impact on space and labor requirements on site. Cost of breakfast service, a survey by the Hotel and Catering Economic Development Council Service in Hotels, HMSO, 56D, showed that the labor cost of serving breakfast in bedrooms was about 2/3 the cost of providing it in the restaurant. Many continental hotels have recognized this and do not open the restaurant before lunch. Some American hotels do not serve meals at all and guests have breakfast in the nearest drugstore. Publication of the report may produce a trend in this direction in future UK hotels. In addition to labor cost, space is an important factor. In a city center hotel, as few as 5% of resident guests may eat lunch or 20% to 30% may eat dinner in the hotel, but nearly 100% want breakfast. Also, experience in different situations shows that 50% of residents will converge at the peak of breakfast. The combined seats of the restaurants should therefore equal half the number of beds. Clearly, to determine maximum seating requirements by the uneconomic service of breakfast is irrational. The simplest solution is to provide floor pantries with adequate cooking facilities to provide full English breakfast for the proportion of guests who require it. This, in turn, requires a flexible approach to staffing, which some of the major companies are now adopting. In a large hotel which may have a 24-hour coffee grill operation, those who require full English breakfast can be encouraged to take it there, or it can be delivered from there to the room. Sufficient storage is, of course, required in floor pantries to provide continental breakfast in the rooms. Vending machines. Vending has, of course, made an appearance on the hotel scene, including machines suitable for vending drinks in each room. Records of use can be transmitted directly to the customer's account. Machines capable of selling brought or bottled beers are available with timing devices to enable sales to be limited to licensed hours. Some of the more popularly priced hotels, which are not large enough to have a 24-hour coffee grill service, provide beverage vending machines on bedroom floors to avoid the costly provision of room service. In general, these machines are not designed to blend with the surroundings. The problem of the guest who checks out of the hotel immediately after a full breakfast can now be overcome by the use of machines which transmit a copy of the bill to the accounts office to be quickly added to the guest's account, changing customer needs. Customer needs, of course, vary according to the basic situation. He may be on holiday at a resort for 2 weeks. He may be on a touring holiday spending only a night in each hotel. He may be on business requiring an overnight stop. Or the restaurant customer may be local, enjoying an evening out and not using the hotel as such. Whatever the basic situation, the customer needs should be researched or at least carefully thought through. The meal experience. What the customer purchases in a restaurant is a meal experience which is a unique combination of living atmosphere, service, choice of food and drink, and other facilities, of which the most important are the lavatories. Growth of freedom. People now want greater freedom of choice of menu, compatible with their powers of decision-making and with the time they have available. They want to have as many or as few courses as they please, the vast majority preferring a la carte to a set meal. There has been increasing reluctance, partly a result of increased travel, to eat at traditional meal times, and in high streets about 70% of eating, mainly snacks, takes place between traditional meal times. There is increasing demand for choice of type and speed of service. Some 90% of motorway customers prefer self-service to table or counter service. Finally, people prefer a choice of atmosphere, varying in degree of informality with their mood and with their powers of discrimination, correlating broadly with occupational level and with how much they are prepared to pay. Pressures of time. In general, there has been a gradual shift away from formality and the grand restaurant to informality and smaller restaurants seating perhaps 60 to 80 people. This is partly because people do not have time to change their clothes to fit every occasion. Also because of lack of time, meals involve fewer courses. A reduction from 5 or 7 courses in the Middle Ages to an average of 21 in the UK today. America has almost become a one-course nation, drink replacing the first course. Growth of affluence. With increasing affluence in the Western world, domestic standards of interior design are rising and the hotelier must recognize that his standards have to be ahead. With a fashion cycle of 5 to 7 years, this means an interior design approach which recognizes replacement after a limited marketing life. American experience shows that there is a correlation between what the average customer spends and the life of the concept. Operators who serve cheap food quickly allow for a marketing life of 3 to 5 years. Expensive restaurants, where the other customers matter more than the decor, average 15 years before a new interior concept is required. Subconscious needs. Research shows that 90% of customer needs when eating out are subconscious and relate to their mood, determined by the basic situation, to their powers of discrimination, broadly related to occupational levels, to their age, and to the price they are prepared to pay. Different colors and combinations of colors, different layouts and shapes of tables, and different textures can meet many of these needs. Different occupational levels, for example, prefer different hues, the lower preferring bright primary colors, the upper something more delicate, tending towards neutrality. Predominance of colors towards the red end of the spectrum, plus brightness, increases sociability, blood circulation and muscular activity. Colors towards the violet end induce withdrawal, reduced blood circulation and hence the danger of indigestion. This, apart from the indigestion, is, of course, the requirement for an escapist mood in a nightclub or for sound sleep in a bedroom. The crucial need, however, is to avoid monotony, and colors and textures in a restaurant must convey a price feel which must equate with the real price level of the restaurant. To eat an expensive meal in a cheap environment is to experience poor value for money, while an expensive-looking environment may frighten away customers. However cheap the meal may be, the specialty restaurant as a solution. Smaller specialty restaurants, carefully designed to a scientific brief, can meet most of the customers' changing needs at present. But future designs for hotel restaurants must recognize the increasingly frequent necessity for changes in concept. 3 basic situations in hotel catering. Resorts. Traditionally, a resort hotel, at which guests might stay for a week or two, had to provide a home from home. The restaurant was designed to cater for the residents' needs to eat in at breakfast and dinner and to eat lunch out, possibly packed meals. Thus, the restaurant relied largely on chance custom at lunch and rotated the limited choice dinner menu to relieve boredom. As at home, with increased mobility and increased demand for freedom, guests may want to eat lunch or dinner in a building different from the one in which they sleep. The main requirement is for leisure activities, and resort developments have to be viewed as a total leisure complex. Recent developments, mainly abroad, have incorporated leisure activities, example, skiing, bathing, into a complete village including houses, shops, hotel accommodation with separate restaurants, bars and dancing nearby in the village. Generally, the houses may be sold off to individuals, or a consortium of companies may buy them for letting on a weekly basis. Each hotel may add to the number of restaurants in the village by having one itself. If it does, the restaurant must be so designed as to attract customers from elsewhere in the village, a very different concept from that of an enlarged domestic dining room. There cannot, therefore, be a set meal time. The basis must be a la carte. Developers of individual hotels must realize that the accommodation side of their business is virtually separate from the eating side. There is, however, an important sector of the popular market, catering for tour operators, which may require dinner, bed and breakfast in the same establishment. This must then be designed essentially on a banqueting basis, requiring a kitchen layout totally different from an a la carte kitchen. The hotel's marketing policy must be quite clear about reliance on tour operators because the decision irrevocably affects the design and type of service to transient passengers. This type of trade provides for overnight stops at airports when changing planes, at seaports, where guests may have driven some distance before arriving, and on trunk roads where the driver may not wish to enter a large town to seek accommodation. 3. Air passengers. It is essential to recognize that, depending how far they have traveled, international passengers may arrive, relative to their point of starting, feeling that it is breakfast time or dinner time, or, as far as they are concerned, the middle of the night, even though local time is 11:00. Such an hotel has to organize itself on a 24-hour basis, and the menu, which can be mainly functional, has to contain items relevant to breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snacks, these will have to be served in a restful, elegant atmosphere, since the traveler has literally nowhere else to go. A bar, serving light snacks and salads, can offer a choice of both atmosphere and food and drink. If the hotel is very large, it can provide an haute cuisine restaurant for travelers who want to overcome monotony by dining pleasurably, but such an hotel must offer other entertaining ways of killing time. Something of a national flavor should be deliberately incorporated in the design. Example, in England, a traditional pub. If the airport handles international traffic, it immediately provides a convenient venue for international conferences and exhibitions. A large hotel should incorporate banqueting, conference, and exhibition facilities for both small and large international gatherings. The main market is for a capacity of about 500 guests. Larger conferences gravitate to capital cities offering other diversions. The main market will be the solitary customer, so table arrangements must try to overcome the problem of loneliness. But any international airport is usually a small city in terms of the number of ground and air crew staff in the vicinity. The haute cuisine restaurant will therefore also appeal to airline captains and senior members of staff. One of the problems in airport hotels is the sudden cancellation of flights caused by poor weather. Improvements in blind landing equipment should shortly eliminate this cause of violent fluctuation in demand. Main trunk roads, the motorist nearing his destination, which may be a large town, may be too tired to enter the town with its attendant traffic and parking problems to look for an hotel. In America, a complex of motels and restaurants tends to grow on the outskirts of a city or at principal intersections of main highways. There may be 20 or 30 motels in the complex and enough restaurants, usually run by nationally known chain operators, to match the accommodation and meet the needs of passing traffic. The motel is traditionally accommodation only, usually one unit per car, and able to accommodate, if necessary, a family of 4 plus baby. If space is costly, the motel may extend to 2 stories, but each upper room should have a staircase to the car, and at least the boot of the car must be protected from the weather. A motor inn, in America, is a motel with a restaurant plus guaranteed parking, and is really just an hotel for motorists. Sometimes the restaurant and reception are combined in one building with covered access to the rooms. More often it is just a 3 or 4-story hotel with plenty of parking space around it. Holiday Inns is an American company which develops and builds motor inns which it offers on franchises to operators. It actually creates 125 new inns a year with an average of 500 rooms each. Quite a number are now being developed in Britain and on the continent. Each inn is built to a formula, the room having 2 double beds with a cot available. Each hotel, even in a city center, has a swimming pool, sometimes on the roof. The idea originated in Florida and the southern holiday states where motels were not satisfactorily designed for the traveling holidaymaker. Restaurants in smaller inns have an all-day menu which enables snacks to be served between main meals. The larger inns, which are being built in Britain, will have a deluxe restaurant for lunch and dinner only and a coffee shop open all day. In Britain, the term motel has been misunderstood, and what have been built are, with 2 or 3 exceptions, all motor inns. The Automobile Association has just introduced a classification, March 1970, of motels and motor inns in the American sense, much to the annoyance of the so-called motel operators. Motel complexes have not yet appeared in this country since motor inns in Britain are built mainly on the outskirts of large towns. They cater also for local dining out. Part of their custom comes from local business, and some operators, like SO motels, include banqueting in their range of facilities. The restaurant, if well sited and combined with a petrol station and with a coffee grill shop type of operation, will also attract passing motorists. Most motels in America provide equipment in each room to enable the occupants to provide themselves with early morning coffee. Guests can call for breakfast at a restaurant on their way out of the complex. If the complex is large, there will usually be a home food type restaurant run by a national chain such as Howard Johnson, and some specialty restaurants. If small, there may only be a Howard Johnson. Car ferry travelers. Many people drive considerable distances from Scotland or the Midlands to a port from where the car can be ferried to the continent. Traffic conditions make precise timing difficult, and travelers may prefer to spend the night in or near the port to be sure of making the sailing time next day. Thus, motor inns exist outside and in such towns. 9.4 Summary. Various relationships between the two sorts of accommodation, bedrooms and public areas. Planning requirements vary according to the size and type of hotel and its situation. Required provision must be sought from planning authority. Choice between a high or low building depends on site value and any limitations imposed on the development. In a rural setting of relatively low land value, planning and construction costs usually favor a low building. Between the hotel or restaurant operator and the architect is a growing body of technology, scientifically approaching both customer needs and efficient production. In large hotel companies, particularly outside the UK, these technologies are organized within each company under various titles and include marketing, project management, development, work study, layout and planning, and operations analysis. The small company cannot afford such organizations and has to rely on catering consultants, some of whom cover some of these expertise. Thank you. Subscribe to our channel for more updates, and we will see you with the next chapter.